Peace and blessings of Allah be upon you, dear viewers, and welcome to your program Fatawa. Today I have the pleasure to have with me at Iqraa Studios in Cairo, Dr. Sami Mandour, professor at Al-Azhar University. Welcome, Dr. Sami. Before we start, we are waiting, of course, for your questions via our phone number 0020233887591, and all the numbers that are going to appear on the screen. Skype Iqraa Fatawa, via email fatawa@iqraa.com, facebook.com/Iqraa French, and Twitter @Iqraa TV France. So, dear viewers, before we start our program, or before you start asking your questions, we're going to give you an introduction concerning the freedom of speech, something that we have talked about during our previous episode, but we are going to develop on this topic and answer a few questions that haven't been answered last time. Let me read the definition for you. The freedom of speech is the right to not worry, for your right to express yourself freely using any means possible. This freedom of speech is protected by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So Islam gives a crucial importance to this freedom, and it's one of the major pillars and principles of Islam. This freedom, is this freedom absolute? What are its limits? And how to react if we notice an abuse of this freedom? All these questions are going to be asked to Dr. Sami. We're going to start asking you, is it an absolute freedom, Dr. Sami? In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon His messenger, His family, and faithful companions. We have already started talking about this topic, given the fact that we are all talking today in this modern era about this freedom of speech. But you have asked me a crucial question: is it an absolute freedom or not? If it's an absolute freedom, then anyone is going to use and abuse this freedom and say whatever they want, and we are going to fall in a chaotic situation. There will be an imbalance in our world. That's why we are going to say that, yes, we are for the freedom of speech, but under certain conditions, just like you have mentioned in your introduction. We have conditions that need to be met in order for us to use of this freedom of speech. We cannot give the right to anyone to say whatever they want to say. We need to know at what time, at what moment we need to utter this or that idea, and what the effect is going to be on the society in a whole. Are the effects and the impact going to be a bad one or a positive one? So before we talk about the restrictions and the conditions, let us remind our dear viewers about the Islamic principles. We've talked about the human dignity and the unity of humankind. Also, we have mentioned the diversity within the unity, because Islam itself has recognized the multiplicity of our society, the diversity of our society. So Islam opts for the diversity. It's a universal rule, because Allah, glory to Him, says in the Quran, if He wished to, He would have made us all similar, but He has created us tribes and populations in order for us to get to know each other. Allah glory to him, could have created all Muslims, all humankind in one community, but he chose to create us as a diverse entities in order to get to know each other. So this is the objective of the diversity. How are we going to realize the unity within this diversity also, without harming each other? Because today, for instance, we are in the same place and we are going to discuss a question or an issue. One of us is going to express his or her point of view. So there will be a dialogue that is going to be established, and this dialogue needs to be utile, needs to be fruitful. That's why it should be an element that is going to establish unity and stability within the society. Therefore, we need to agree upon a principle in order to continue realizing this objective, which is stability and unity of our society. The principle is that we are going to undoubtedly disagree on many things, but this disagreement is going to be done or to happen in a harmony. And the atmosphere is going to be friendly and brotherly. We have already given many examples regarding this issue. And there is an example that comes to my mind between two young people. As you know, youth is always symbolical of fervor, of enthusiasm, of passion. So one young man came to see the Prophet, peace be upon him, and asked him to do something that was actually unlawful in Islam, which was one of the major sins in Islam. And he asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, please allow me to commit an act of adultery. Imagine if nowadays someone asks you such a question, what your reaction will be. Some of the companions at that time were very angry at this young man, but the Prophet, peace be upon him, was so wise, and he asked them to leave him alone. And he started a dialogue with this young man. This young man gave the Prophet, peace be upon him, his point of view. In this case, what can you imagine that anyone's reaction would be in front of such a request from this young man? The Prophet, peace be upon him, was so patient and started asking him questions in order to convince him. So here, in this situation where we are in an atmosphere of opinions and arguments, you need to be very patient. Prophet, peace be upon him, used the same method of argument. And he started asking this young man, would you accept this for your mother? Would you accept that your mother commits an act of adultery? And the young man said, no, of course, I will never accept this. The Prophet's answer was, using this young man's argument, people are not going to accept it for their own mothers. It's the same, whether for their aunts, for their own mothers, their sisters. It's an act that is socially not permissible. So this is an example just to give you how you can use arguments in order to convince people. We have a Basma from France. Hello? Yes, peace be upon you. Basma, I have a question regarding the work, a job for a woman at a hospital as a nurse. My job requires me to wash males at hospitals. Is it permissible or not, Islamically speaking? Do you have another question? No, thank you. But it's really regarding the nature of work for women. So we will answer before going on and speaking in more details about the freedom of speech. First of all, you need to ask this question: what is the priority for women? Is the priority for this woman is to work only, or do you have a family that you need to take care of, and you're just working just for the sake of work, just because you feel good about yourself having a job? One of us, you need to remind yourself that we have an Islamic obligation towards our family. So the first example cited by our beloved Prophet is the woman. The woman is responsible in her house. So this is the main principle that she needs to keep in mind. Then you need to study the cases separately, because if it's a necessity for a woman to work, then there's no harm doing so. You have certain type of works that only women can do, like gynecologists. You have nurses also, the work of a nurse. So you have work, nature of jobs that only women can assume, only women can perform. In this case, it's an obligation, a collective obligation. So we need to have women to do what only women can do in the realm of work. On the other side, there are some type of works, of jobs that women are not allowed to do. Some can simply do because she's not physically able to. And you have women who find themselves needing this job. A woman who doesn't have anyone that can take care of her financially, and she needs to take care of herself by herself. So work in this case is an essential thing. And then you have women who needs this job in order to help their husbands because his salary is not sufficient in order to feed the family. So we're talking here about cooperation, about collaboration. And this is a good thing, of course, because it is meant to help raise the family and avoid the family to be in a need of others. If woman is obliged to go outside the house, she needs to accept the Islamic rules regarding her behavior, her acts, her words, the way she deals with others. This woman is working as a nurse, but she's washing men at the hospital. So if she can limits her work only for women, that would be great. But the fact may be that she cannot because she's working in a big hospital, and maybe her boss doesn't allow her to have conditions, to give him conditions in regarding her work, then she needs to avoid being isolated with men as much as possible. And if she can look for other options, for other type of work, that would be nice. But you said she could not isolate herself with a man. But for instance, if she has to wash men, like she said, how is she going to avoid being alone with the room with him? It's a fait accompli. She is in a room with him if she's washing or giving him medicines. Yes, I agree, but as soon as she finishes her duty, then she needs to leave the room where she finds herself with this man. As I said, again, if there is no other way to find another job, then it's fine. There's no harm for her to be with to remain at her work. We will continue talking about the freedom of speech. We've already talked about the principles upon which a freedom of speech needs to be based. We need to live together. We need to avoid abusing our power and our freedom of speech. We are in the same society. We can exchange point of views regarding the society, our social issues, economic issues, but keeping this mutual respect of each other's point of views. And this is the main principle of any dialogue established between two Muslims. A shura, what is the shura? Consultation. It's exchanging points of view. And this is one of the pillars of Islam. The Prophet, peace be upon him, lived in many societies, and he helped people in their social activities. So when he was asked about many state of affairs, he used to reply, "You know about your state of affairs better than me. So consult among each other. Do this consultation among each others, and you can come up with good ideas and good rules for your society." One of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, asked him the following question while they were about to engage in a battle. He asked him, is it something that was revealed by Allah, glory to him, or is it a revelation so we can accept it, or is this battle an individual choice? And the Prophet said, no, it's war, so that's why we need to exchange our point of views regarding this war and to adopt certain strategies that we are going to agree upon together. So even after the death of our beloved Prophet, peace be upon him, the companions of the Prophet followed the same example, trying to exchange point of views regarding many issues, regarding the wars. As you may know, there used to be two councils, the minor council and the major council. So when the issue was affecting the majority of Muslims, the Khalifa used to consult the major council in order to amend a certain. We're going to take a break and then come back. Welcome back, dear viewers, to your program Fatawas. We are talking about the freedom of speech, but before we go on, we have Sophia from France. Hello? Good evening, yes. I am calling you from France, but I don't see you from the screen. You are live with us. Do you hear us? Fine, we have lost the call. So let us continue talking about the freedom of speech. What are the restrictions regarding the freedom of speech? We need to remind our dear Muslims about something, because when we give our point of view, we are giving an advice at the same time. In a very important hadith, our beloved Prophet said, religion is sincerity towards Muslims, towards mankind. To whom should we give the advice? And the Prophet answered, there are 4 categories to whom we need to give advice, which are going to constitute the entire society. To Allah, how are we going to give advice to Allah? Fulfilling His commandments and avoiding what has been made illicit. And to His Prophet also, to follow what our beloved Prophet has commanded us to do. And then to the leaders of Muslims, as Muslims, we as imams, we are asked to give advice to Muslims, because if we see a Muslim committing a mistake, we need to rectify this mistake. And when we are in front of a minister or a leader or something like that, we need to also put him on the right path. And then the 4th category, which is the majority of Muslims, which is the masses. Muslims need to have this in mind when they use of their freedom of speech. There is a decision emanating from the Council, from the Islamic organization, in one of the conferences, and the restrictions of freedom of speech have been mentioned. The first restriction is that we never should be prejudicial or to affect the prestigious situation of others. So every time we use of this freedom of speech, we need to avoid to affect the life, the reputation, the dignity of people, whether via defamation or any other means that could harm others if we use this freedom of speech. We need also to avoid subjectivity. Our point of view needs to be objective. We need to put our ego aside and to base our opinion upon objectivity, veracity, objectivity, and I need to isolate myself from any personal desire or objectives. The 3rd restriction is a responsibility. We need to respect the values of this society. We need to be responsible enough in order to respect that. Sophia from France is back with us. Yes, Sophia. Peace be upon you. Do you have a question? I wanted to know, within a marriage, can we talk to a male friend on the phone when we are married as women? Do you have another question? Thank you, Safia. I didn't hear her quite well. Oh, could she talk to her future husband on the phone before getting married? When you are engaged, then yes, of course, you can talk to your future husband. You can talk to him also if he comes and visits you, especially if your family members are present and are here with you. And even in one of the hadith, it is mentioned that the future husband can even see his future wife. There's no harm in doing so. We need also to be very careful with what we say on the phone. That's all that needs to be respected and to be kept in mind. We can express our emotions, our sentiments, of course. There's no harm in doing so because it will help us realize a stable life in the future. But what is illicit, what is forbidden, and there's a consensus about that, is that the fiancé can see the hands and the face of his fiancée. We have Ibrahim from France.
Ibrahim? Hello?
Peace be with you, Ibrahim. I have a question concerning the beard. Is it obligatory to shave, to grow the beard, or is it possible to shave it? Is it permissible? Do you have another question? No, thank you. Growing the beard. You have two points of view regarding the beard. There's a group of scholars who are for the opinion of the traditions of the first human. So the nature of a human, and the first human was to grow the beard. So we need to leave it as is. But there's another group of scholars who are of the opinion to shave the long one. So we need to know, is it an obligation or a recommendation? We have actually two opinions. We have those who opt for the recommended one. It's sunnah. They say it's sunnah to let the beard grow. But the other group say that it's a must. It's a must, and Muslim men need to grow their beard. So those who are not going to apply this sunnah are not going to be punished. You're not going to be punished if you don't do it, for those who said it's a choice. But for the other group who says it's a must, then punishment will take place in case they don't fulfill this obligation. These are the 2 points of view. These are the two attitudes regarding the beard. You can choose between this or that one. Both are not wrong. Those who say it's sunnah have signs, have proofs regarding this. Those who say it's obligation, it's an obligation, they have proofs also. Whether you have chosen this or that, both are right. But in order to be in the middle, it's better to grow the beard. I don't do it. I miss applying this tradition, but I would like to do it, actually. We have Safia from France. I have 2 questions. That's why I'm calling you. The first question is regarding a bank loan to buy a house with interest in order to buy a house. Yes? I think we have lost the call. Sophia, try to call us again, please. Her first question is probably about the interests, because her bank loan has been discussed. Bank loans are a frequent question that is asked for the scholars. She is probably in the obligation, in the necessity of buying a house, and it's better for her to buy a house in the West than to rent a house, because rents are very expensive there, and that's why it's better for Muslims to have an independent house for their kids when they live in the West. So it's a necessity. And the European Council of Fatwa has... she's back with us? Sophia, are you with us? Yes. So my question was regarding this bank loan. We don't have an Islamic bank in France that deals without interest. My husband is of the principle that it's better to own a house. But we are really worried because there is no Islamic bank here. The other question is that my husband is working in restaurants, and I wanted to know if it's illicit to open this restaurant during Ramadan and during Fridays, because it's a restaurant, Western restaurant. My husband is working in a restaurant, and I wanted to know if it's illicit to open the restaurant during Ramadan. No, he's working in a restaurant that I just wanted to know if it's illicit to open it during Ramadan and during Fridays, because it has food and alcohol. And I thank you for your program. We're going to ask the first question regarding buying a house. We need to ask ourselves a vital question. To which extent is this necessity a burden? Is it really a must do we really find ourselves under the obligation of buying it for the kids because we can no longer pay such expensive, exorbitant rents? But then this question needs to be answered sincerely before we engage in such an act of getting a bank loan. And then the other question is, do I have the cash? Do I own the entire amount to buy it? Then I can probably choose this option rather than taking a bank loan. If not, then yes, it becomes probably a must for the kids, for the family in a whole. It's an important thing for a Muslim family to have a house. If we have this obligation and if we don't have any bank, Islamic bank, allowing us to buy or to take a loan without interest, then we need to measure this necessity. The necessities sometimes allow us to touch the unlawful things. We'll take this phone call and then answer the other question. Fatima, peace be upon you. Yes, you're with us live. Do you hear us? Do you have a question, Fatima? So I am married, I have kids. My husband works in France. My kids are very religiously educated. They pray, they fast. My husband is... My daughter is 13 years old. And I wanted to go to Algeria and ask my husband to stay at home to take care of the kids, but he doesn't want to. We always argue, we always fight. I always fight with my husband regarding who takes care of the children and the house. Thank you very much. Is your husband in Algeria for good, or does he just travels? He lives in France, but we have another house in Algeria. In the beginning, he used to travel for very short periods of time, but now he's staying there for 3 months. When he travels, he stays there for longer periods of time. He doesn't take care of the family anymore. So he just leaves everything to you, and he doesn't take care of the family. Yes, I'm in France with my kids. I take care of everything. And praise be to Allah, my kids are very well educated, are religiously educated, and I do everything. I raise them myself. He doesn't do anything. Thank you for your question. We'll take a short break and then come back. Dear viewers, stay with us after the break. Welcome back, dear viewers. We're about to answer your questions. Sophia's question says that her husband is working in a restaurant, and she wanted to know if opening this restaurant during Ramadan and Fridays is permitted. Well, if his work obliges him to open this restaurant during these times, then there's no harm doing so. Some people would come during Ramadan for the iftar in his restaurant, so at his restaurant. So it's not a problem. The problem is not what the fact that he's offering food. The problem is what exactly is he offering? Is he offering wine, alcohol? What is the nature of this food? Is it licit? Is it illicit? If he starts offering pork or alcohol, then there is an inconvenience here. And the question should be, can he ask another person in this restaurant, working with him in this restaurant, to offer or to work at his place during Ramadan and during Fridays, even during most of the time when these type of items are offered. Our advice is for him is to try and find another job. But of course, he has to measure the magnitude of the nature of his job, of his work. Is it going to make him commit sin on a daily basis? Is it possible to manage letting another person doing the service when it comes to offering items, illicit items? I have a question here. The waiter is going to take the request, and then another person cooks, and the waiter takes the plate and put it on the table. The waiter didn't see what was cooked in the kitchen. So in this case, is he committing a sin even though he doesn't know what has been cooked in the kitchen? As we see in the restaurant, the waiter that has the plate in his hands sees what this plate contains. He probably doesn't know if it's pork, or if it's a regular meat. I don't think that he is that ignorant. He's working in this restaurant, and he knows quite well what does this restaurant offer. The client is going to make a clear request when he is going to take the order. The client is going to ask for pork or regular meat. There's no way the waiter doesn't know what type of meat is in this plate. So it's better for the waiter to not take the plate in case it's a pork. Yes, we have a question, caller from France. Peace be upon you. My question is regarding a young man who died yesterday. He committed a suicide. He jumped off the 13th floor. Is it permissible to do the mortuary prayer on him, Salat al-Janaza, knowing that the mother is a Muslim? His father is not. We just don't know up to this minute if his father is opposed to such a prayer, the mortuary prayer. The young man who committed suicide, we're not sure if he died as a Muslim, but we just wanted to know since the mother is a Muslim, is there any affiliation? Is there any possibility that we could do Salat al-Janaza, the mortuary prayer, on this young man who died? We can just proceed to the funerals as a Muslim. You said you're not sure that he's not a Muslim. You were not sure. His mother is a Muslim. No, his father is not a Muslim. We cannot actually be sure whether he was a Muslim or not, because his father is a Christian, his mother is a Muslim, but his father is a Christian. When we give a judgment, we need to provide this judgment based on a certainty in order to not abuse the Islamic rules. You have already probably told a scholar at an Islamic center in France, but I personally think that you should perform this mortuary prayer. Just go on and perform the mortuary prayer and ask Allah glory to him to forgive him. May Allah bless you. Thank you very much. Fatima's question from France. She says that she's always fighting with her husband because he's always in Algeria. He doesn't take care of the children, and she was raising the kids alone. Lately, this is the problem most of the time, because just as like in this case, how to build a Muslim house. A Muslim man and woman need to know what is a Muslim house. It's a family. And these family ties need to be respected and protected. So this family need to be based just like the Quranic verse says, harmony should fulfill the atmosphere of this family. You need to behave with them in a convenient manner, in a good manner, based on the Islamic principles. And you have another verse. A Muslim should not dislike a Muslim woman. Maybe if he dislikes one of her traits, he will probably like another trait in her. So patience is key in this regard. This husband, unfortunately, is not fulfilling the commandments of God. He needs to be responsible. He's lacking one of the major commandments of Allah, glory to him. He needs to take care of the mother and the kids. He cannot just leave the family like this and giving all the responsibility and the burden of raising the kids on the mother alone. What does she want in this case exactly? Did we try, for instance, to have two persons from each family in order to establish the reconciliation, in order to end these fightings? When we are fighting, then we are in a state of shiqaq. We are in a state of dispute. That's why each family needs to choose one wise person in order to establish the reconciliation. If we do this and we haven't succeeded yet, then in this case, when life becomes just impossible within this family, then we can agree on the way we can treat the kids, we can deal with the kids, but don't resort to divorce as the first option. You need to leave it to the end, when all the doors are closed in our faces, when all the ways have been used but turned out to be impossible to reconciliate. And again, our advice to this husband is that he needs to be responsible, because if he doesn't fulfill his responsibilities, then he's going to be punished by Allah, glory to him. And he needs also to provide for this family, to sit with your wife and to deal with them, to resolve the problems. I have a question via our mail. It's Sarah's question. A young girl has been abused by a man, and she's pregnant. Is it possible for her to resort to abortion? Before talking to abortion, there's something that we need to talk about. The human soul is sacred, and anyone who touches or harms this human soul is as if he has harmed the entire humanity. It's very dangerous to harm this soul. We'll continue, but let us take this phone call. Tariq? Excuse me, I'm calling you regarding the interest, riba, usury. Usury, a group of scholars say that it's permissible to take bank loans in the West, especially in the West. So certain scholars are of the opinion that it's permissible, and other groups of scholars are not. Generally speaking, for instance, because I am paying a rent, and I'm paying a very exorbitant rent, I just want to own a house. Are you talking about from a general point of view, if the riba is permissible or not, if the interest is permissible or not, and then talk about your individual case? Fine. We will answer your question. Shall we talk about abortion first, and then, as you like? Tariq has mentioned the interest, usury. We have the hukm, which is the legal disposition, and then we have the fatwa, the opinion of scholars. A loan bank with interest is not permissible. It's unlawful. Fear Allah and avoid anything that has to deal with riba. So at the origin, a riba, usury, is illicit. But when we talk about loan banks, bank loans, we need to ask ourselves the following question. As he mentioned two groups of scholars. One who says that it's permissible, the other group of scholars says it's not. The consensus is that any bank loan is not permissible. It's unlawful. The Council itself didn't say otherwise. This is from a general point of view. Even those who have made the bank loan licit are going to ask people who ask them about the interest the following question: are you under the obligation and the must of taking this loan? So, in the case of our brother, our question would be, do you really feel that it's a must, there is a necessity for you to buy this house? Then you can do it, but you need to know that it's an unlawful act, but you're still doing it because you need to. We have Ahmed from France. Peace be upon you. May God bless you. I have a question regarding living without declaring myself, because I live in France since 7 years and I haven't tell the authorities that I'm on the French soil. So I wanted to ask you about the white marriage, which is mariage blanc, which means that I get married to a woman without declaring this marriage. Do you have any other question? I just wanted to know if it's licit or illicit in Islam to have this type of marriage. Okay. When we say white marriage, it means that it's a marriage that has not been consumed. And it's an interested marriage, which means that we have a certain objective behind it. What is the end goal of this marriage? The end goal of this marriage is to do something, is to have something for our own interest. But the end goal of any proper marriage is to establish a family, is to live together, is to raise, to be in a happy family, to raise kids. This is marriage in Islam, in order to establish also understanding, respect, and to be with a wife who will understand me and who will appease me. This is the objective of marriage. But in this case, the white marriage, who has not been declared and that has not been consumed. So this type of marriage has been established with certain conditions, and you have agreed with your partner about certain conditions, but it's contradictory to the spirit of marriage itself. This is not marriage, because you are going to agree with her that once your objectives is realized or achieved, you're going to probably leave her or to divorce her. It's not legal because it's not fulfilling, it's not answering the end goal of Islamic marriages. Marriage in Islam doesn't have any interest, any agenda, any objective, personal objectives, because it's egoistical to do so. Islam doesn't condone treachery. Islam doesn't condone deceit, and this is deceitful. We're going to take a short break, dear viewers, a short break. Welcome back, dear viewers, to your program Fatawa. We have a caller, Rabia from France.
Allô?
Allô?
Allô? D'accord. Nous allons essayer
Okay, so we're going to try to contact Rabia again.
la question concernant l'avortement.
Concerning abortion, you wanted to say something about it. We have already mentioned certain principles in Islam. It's the sacrality, sacred character of a human soul. Nobody is allowed to touch this soul or to affect this soul. It's a sacred soul in Islam. In our case here, a woman who needs to resort to abortion, is it permitted or not? She's not an adult, she's a minor. We're talking, regardless, we're talking you're talking about the principle of Islam regarding abortion. It's not permissible to harm the soul of a human being. But if the abortion takes place before 120 days, if the abortion takes place before 4 months, the sin is of lesser importance. But if the abortion takes place after 4th month, which is the period during which this fetus becomes a human being, an actual human being, and is entirely created, the creation has been achieved, then she needs to pay a diya, which means that she killed a soul. She needs to pay something like 213 grams of gold. And a group of scholars say also that she needs to fast for 2 months in a row. We cannot ask a woman to resort to abortion unless she's under the necessity, unless it's a necessity for her, which means that it can cause her death, the death of the mother, or she can be, her life is in danger. Then we need to give the priority to the mother's life. But after she has resorted to abortion, she needs to fulfill these two things, which is paying the diya and fasting for 2 months. Rabia from France.
Hello.
Oui, salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
May the peace be upon you. You have a question?
Oui, j'ai une question, mais en fait, je sais pas trop si je peux la poser la question.
I don't know. I don't know whether I am allowed to ask my question because it's a special question. I am a Muslim. Does it happen to all Muslims to have erotic dreams? It's not voluntary, actually. It's sometimes I do this type of dreams, and I wanted to know if it happens to many Muslims. Yes, briefly, it happens. I think it happens both for men and women to have erotic dreams, which so this is going to require to require us to wash ourselves after we have this type of dreams. After these erotic dreams, if we're talking about wet dreams, then we need to make the special ablutions, and we need to do the ghusl, which is the major ablution, both for men and women.
Ok, vous avez d'autres questions?
Do you have another question?
Non, j'ai pas d'autres questions.
C'est bon? D'accord.
Thank you very much. I don't have any other question.
D'accord. Alors, on a terminé l'avortement. Je passe
We
à la question
have
de
answered the
donc,
question
oui,
regarding
donc,
abortion.
Silobin de Côte d'Ivoire.
Silobin from
vous demande
from
si,
Ivory Coast
la
asking
célébration de Al-Mawlid An-Nabawi,
about the celebration of our beloved prophet is licit or illicit. We have an entire discussion regarding this. It's a controversial question. But the middle, we need to be in the middle when we ask. We need to be moderated when we ask. Use moderation when you answer. So my answer is, if you want to celebrate, just don't engage into exaggerated celebration. The problem is not whether it's licit or illicit, even though there is divergence regarding the opinions around this topic. But for instance, for me, the celebration of our beloved prophet, the birthday's prophet, is to be conform to the tradition of our prophet, to take him as a role model, as an example, and to apply the sunnah. This is how we celebrate his birthday. We are in Rabi al-Awwal, the third month of the Islamic calendar. So when we remember the Prophet, peace be upon him, we remember his life, we remember his sunnah, his behavior with Muslims, with his wives. This is the best way to celebrate the Prophet's birthday. I think it should be celebrated throughout the year, the entire year, not only during this day. We need to do it on a daily basis, remembering him and following his example. Miriam from France, peace be upon you. Can I ask the Sheikh, please? I have two questions. My first question, so I am a divorced woman, and I have a daughter. I raised her Islamically. I taught her how to pray in order to be a good Muslim, and for my other kids also. My daughter is 12 years old, and she has been told that she's going to travel with the school for 5 days. I don't really want her to go with others because they're going to be on a trip. She probably is going to wear a swimming suit, and she's going to be away from me. So I personally don't want to let her go. But religiously speaking, shall I let her go or not? What is your advice for me? When we read the Noble Quran, we have already done our ablutions, but then we have meanwhile eaten something. Are we obliged to wash our mouth again, or is it fine to just perform the prayer without washing the mouth if the ablutions have been made already? We have two questions. The first question regarding her daughter, who is 10 years old, and she needs to go on a trip with the school. The mother is asking if if she's allowed to let her go or not. She's the only one who can decide, actually, because she knows fully well what is going to happen during the trip. And the other question is this trip obligatory? Is it a necessity for this young kid to attend this school trip? Because I personally don't know what are the details of this trip, because she mentioned the swimming suit and other things. For a 10-year-old daughter, she's starting to become a young girl, so it's very difficult to give an opinion regarding this. The mother needs to decide whether she's allowed to go or not. The other opinion is that if the young girl is in a good company, and we are making sure that no harmful acts that are contradictory to the principles of Islam are going to happen or to take place, then it's fine to let her go. This is my advice. My advice also is to let her see, to double-check the circumstances under which the girl is going to be during this trip. The opinion and the decision, the final decision is for the mother. Regarding the recitation of the Quran as an act of worship, it's better to be purified, and it's better to be in a state of purification, to proceed to ablutions, because only those who are purified are allowed to touch the noble Quran. But if we eat something and we have already made our ablutions, can we read the Quran or not? Of course we can. If we didn't wash our mouth again, it's not a condition to read the Quran. If we eat a candy, from a health point of view, it's better to wash your mouth, of course, but it's not a condition to do so, to read the Quran. If a friend of mine has given me something to drink while I'm going to the mosque, and I've already done my ablutions, am I obliged to repeat the ablutions? She's not talking about the same thing, actually. If you have a siwak, for instance, in your case, you can use it, because the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to use the siwak before performing the prayer. But it doesn't annihilate the prayer or the recitation of the Quran. It doesn't harm the fact that we read the Quran without doing it. She shouldn't touch the Quran if she has her periods, if the woman has her periods. But as for reading it, there's another opinion. She can do the invocations. She can read certain verses as invocations while before sleeping or while we go to bed. We need to. We feel that we need to do certain invocations. Then there is no harm doing so. We have another question from Nuruddin. When a woman gets married, does she have to keep her father's name? Yes, in Islam, that's the case. Because it's an honor for the woman to keep her father's name. The woman benefits from a certain independence in her house, financially speaking, Also, she's independent. She is. She is going to keep her father's name because it's an honor for her. She's not subjected to her husband. She already has an independence. She already has a personality. And the woman can manage her own affairs, her own things alone. She is already able and has this capacity to manage her affairs. She can do anything she wants alone. If she has money, for instance, she can buy her own house. She can deal with all the matters that are personal to her. The Quran, the Noble Quran tells us, call them by their father's name. So the woman keeping her father's name is a good thing. We have, for instance, we call Hatem the son of X or Y. We have 1 minute. Can you answer this question? What is the most, the act that Allah loves the most? You have many hadiths that answer this question, but for me, the act that has merits in the sight of Allah, glory to Him, if you have fulfilled the pillars of Islam, it's the dhikr, the invocation. You need to always do remembrance, to always do invocation. In this case, you will never fall in the wrong path. You will never commit sins. If you feel the presence of Allah, glory to Him, He will be close to you, glory to Him, and He will avoid you from committing any sins. So invocations are one of the most loved acts in the sight of Allah. We have reached the end of the program. Thank you very much, Dr. Sami Mandour, Professor at Al-Azhar University. Dear viewers, thank you very much for your attention and meet you soon.